You will hear a lecture about railways in Britain in the 19th century. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 33. Listen carefully to the first part of the lecture and answer questions 31 to 33.
In today's lecture, I'm going to talk about the impact of the railways in Britain in the 19th century. The history of the railway network is about more than trains. It's the story of the social fabric of the UK since the turn of the 19th century. The political, economic and social ramifications of the arrival of the railways can still be felt today. Let's start with a quick historical summary, and then we can examine in more detail the effects of the changes it brought to these isles. First of all, it is the oldest railway system in the world, but originally was just a patchwork of local rail links operated by small private railway companies for commercial purposes and financial gain, mainly based around mining and industrial areas for the rapid transportation of goods, coal and so on. They were central to the spread of the Industrial Revolution, helping to make Britain one of the most powerful nations in the world. Very quickly, more and more lines were built, often with little regard for their potential for traffic. The 1840s were by far the biggest decade for railway growth. In 1840, when the decade began, railway lines in Britain were few and scattered, but within 10 years, a virtually complete network had been laid down, and the vast majority of towns and villages had a rail connection, and sometimes 2 or 3. The two main forms of transport before the advent of railways, the horse-drawn coach and the canals, went into rapid decline with the advent of the railways. Rail travel was quicker, cheaper and more comfortable than travelling by stagecoach, and the government insisted that railway companies sell cheap third-class tickets to working-class travellers, while canals lost business as they were slower and liable to freezing in winter. This growth had a negative impact on other enterprises too. Shipping, for example, lost out to the railways as trains were not affected by tides and delays due to storms. And long-distance road transport went into decline and did not recover until the 20th century. But let's look at some of the benefits it brought.
Now you have some time to look at questions 34 to 40. Now listen to the next part of the lecture and answer questions 34 to 40.
Coal, the main energy source, could be transported across the country quickly and cheaply to be used as either a domestic fuel, an industrial power source, or to be converted into coal gas in most towns and cities. Factories were built close to railways as they could be used to transport raw materials and finished goods, bringing employment to many, while the rail companies themselves employed over 100,000 people by 1860. Such an extensive network also encouraged the development of a quicker and more reliable postal service, improving private and business communications. People living in large cities had access to a cheap, quick and convenient communications system with 3 mail deliveries a day. Also, we mustn't forget the benefits to farmers and fishermen, who could now send their produce all over the country. Politically, it meant that ideas could spread faster and more widely than before through the widespread access to newspapers and political pamphlets. And political movements spread around the country because members of organisations such as the Anti-Corn Law League could range far and wide to drum up support. The other side of that coin, of course, is that it also allowed the government to send soldiers by train to stop political unrest and patrol protests. Socially, it also had a huge impact. The railways broke down stereotypes because people from different regions were able to mix more and see how others in different regions lived. People were encouraged to travel further, and this meant they could move to different areas to find work. It also meant that they were able to take short holidays and day trips to the beach, which became a popular pastime. I've already mentioned newspapers, haven't I? But people were now better informed about what was going on in the rest of the world, as well as at the political centre of their own country. There are a couple of other effects the spread of railways had that I was unaware of. One, the standardisation of time. This I was aware of because how else would you be able to provide accurate timetables? What I didn't know was that most regions kept their own time, rather as if this small island were like Russia with several time zones. Secondly, that many sports became regulated so that national competitions could be set up for rugby, football and cricket. Next time, we'll take a look at the troubled 20th century and the many ups and downs the railway system endured, indeed endures to this day.
That is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers. You now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. That is the end of Test 6.